Cuba and put his arm around Fidel and say, "Long live President Castro," like Castro was elected to something. He not only said that, but he said, "Long live Che Guevara, long live Patrice Lumumba," which is about two of the most bloodiest revolutionaries in modern times. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Reaction?
Yeah, well, I'd like to just bring the discussion back to the Third World for a moment. When people, such as the previous caller, called for a new approach to the Third World and so on and so forth, all I can think of is that most rhetoric in the left, in the U.S. about the Third World tends to focus on South Africa. If not South Africa, then Israel. And currently, I think Israel is in the lead as the country being most frequently bashed by progressive opinion in this country. I mean, Israel, a tiny country in the Middle East, a beleaguered country, yet it is sort of the major cause for all unhappiness in the Third World.
The Chicago Tribune put several reporters onto the Push account, the Push audit, and admitted after a very, very long investigation they couldn't find anything to stick on Jesse Jackson. Now, I don't know if they asked all the right questions, but I know that they had a very intensive investigation and they came up with nothing. But since you mentioned innuendo, I wonder how you think it is that the liberals and socialists of the Democratic Party have invented all this stuff about Edmees. I mean, where did we forge the WedTech contract? Where did we print the papers about the Iraqi pipeline contract? Where did we come up with all the business of rewarding his creditors with jobs that the Attorney General has engaged in? I mean, it is simply paranoid to say that this is a smear. All the evidence that's surfaced has surfaced in spite of Mr. Meese, and it's on the record formulated by nobody. It just exists objectively. If it doesn't disturb you, fair enough, but you shouldn't really say that the evidence has been invented.
Well, by singling out such evidence as you pointed to, I think you're simply ignoring what goes on in the world of politics today at every level, on both left and right. And I think it's being mindlessly, I think, hypocritical to pretend that politics is something much more high-minded and clean.
Let's go to Tucson, Arizona. You're next.
Thank you. Next to Reagan, I don't believe there is anything on the right of him. Everyone else looks like they're far left, as far as the political spectrum goes. I did have a question on Iran for Christopher, since he appears to be such an expert. There's a question I've had from the beginning of that affair, that is from the beginning of the revolution in Iran, that has never even been touched, that I know of, and that is, what was the Ayatollah doing in France, sort of hiding away in France during the time when the Shah was still there, knowing that the Western world, France is like a power seat, and they knew what he was going to be doing, going back to Iran and to catalyze the people to himself. It would have been very simple at that time to just do him away and solve the problem from the very, very beginning. So what was he really doing there? Was he really their man to start with and to ride the revolution for 30 years or 20 years or whatever it took and eventually hand it back to the empire?
Chris?
Well, the Ayatollah was in France because he'd been expelled from Iraq, where he had been in exile from Iran, in the Shia Muslim holy city of Najaf, which is in Iraq. The Iraqis got nervous and expelled him. The French took him. The French like to be on both sides of all questions in the Middle East and succeed tremendously well as a general rule. I think, though, they, along with everyone else, including the Iraqis, consistently underestimated the appeal of the Ayatollah to the Iranian people. So I don't think it really crossed anyone's mind that he was a threat while he was living in Neu.
In November of this year, it's possible that we'll be able to peek into the British House of Commons. They're going to go on television for a 6-month experiment. What do you think that impact will have on Margaret Thatcher's government?
Well, it surprises me that she's allowed cameras into the chamber.
She voted against
it. Yes, but the government didn't oppose the move, which it had been expected to do. She's against it personally. I think because of the way the British Chamber is organized, people know this, Winston Churchill had it rebuilt exactly as it was after it was bombed, so there isn't enough room for everyone to sit down. This is supposed to be a very intimate atmosphere that forces people to confront one another. I mean, if you saw a British Question Time, you'd wish that the President had to face one twice a week.
Will the American audience like what they see?
I think that the effect of television on that may be dampening, actually, and it may simply tend to favor people who are good comedians or glib speakers. But I'm very traditional about that kind of thing.
You're not in favor of it?
Not terribly.
Okay. Last call from Twin Rivers, New Jersey. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd like to address my question to Mr. Plesczcynski and his views concerning the Reverend Jackson's campaign. I find that he has a problem in the fact that he mentioned Reverend Jackson's travels abroad as being something that was a dishonor to the country. I find that to be rather shocking concerning the results of Reverend Jackson's trips, which have brought back prisoners, have certainly done nothing to dishonor this country. I do find a problem with this administration, however, that has done the same thing, causing disservice to our country in Iran, Nicaragua, the problem of drug running, which this country's administration has admitted that they've been involved with. How do you square all this with your statements concerning Reverend Jackson's dishonor to this country when you have an administration that seems to have done precisely the things you're talking about?
Thank you, sir.
Well, first of all, I don't understand if cavorting with Fidel Castro or the dictator of Syria does not bring dishonor to our country, I don't know what does. Perhaps Mr. Jackson's relationship with Louis Farrakhan, probably the most virulently anti-Semitic, anti-white person in America. I mean, it is astounding that Mr. Jackson continues to enjoy respect in the political community given these relationships.
In the New York Times this morning, the wife of Senator Albert Gore, Tipper Gore, has an op-ed piece, Curbing the Sexploitation Industry. You both, I'm sure, have seen previous remarks on this. Is this helping or hurting his candidacy?
I hope it's hurting it. I mean, I think the news, the word is out on teenage sex. I think it'll be quite difficult to get the toothpaste back into the tube. I don't think Mrs. Gore is going to be the one to do it, and I think she should give up trying for everybody's sake, not just for his.
No, I mean, Mrs. Gore tends to be much more impressive than her husband, and she has a basic sense that there's too much vulgarity in our culture, and it's a vulgarity that just goes uncensored, just simply is sort of forced on the country as a whole, and people cannot react strongly enough against it, because then they are called prudes and censorers. And I think she's trying to restore a sense of decency to our country.
Chris Hitchens, what are you writing in the March 12th issue, which is the next one after this one?
I'm going to ask ABC News if Henry Kissinger will continue to be their impartial consultant, having called for the press to be banned from the West Bank.
And Wlady Plesczcynski, what can we look forward to in the April issue of the American Spectator?
We have a major expose of the Center for Defense Information, a major kind of apologist for Soviet behavior in the world, and led by Admiral LaRocque. It's a very, in the media at least, it's a highly respected military watchdog. We put try to shed some new light on this dangerous organization.
Wlady Plesczcynski is the managing editor of the American Spectator. He is originally from Santa Barbara, California. And Christopher Hitchens is a columnist with The Nation. He's been at The Nation since 1978. He's originally from Portsmouth, Hampshire, England. Thank you both for joining us, and thank you, audience. Have a good day.
If you have questions or comments for either of our guests, you can write to Wlady Plesczcynski at the American Spectator. The address is 1101 North Highland Street, Arlington, Virginia, 22210. Christopher Hitchens can be reached in care of the nation. That address is 72 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10011.